Black book. You know what time it is. 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 Hey guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird 91. We're talking to you guys today on Men's Unfiltered conversation about male masculine energy. But we're going to have some other topics lodged inside of that conversation. But I'm not doing it alone today. I am joined by the infamous, the wonderful, the sharpshooter himself, Sean Unfiltered. How you doing, bro?
Doing great. Doing great, my brother.
Yeah, man. We were recovering from the 6 hours that we spent in it.
Whoa, that was a live to end all lives. That was but it was a good time, though. Good time.
Yeah, man. I'm even sad that I'm not here for Christmas. Otherwise, would have done a Christmas special. Do you know what I mean? Or New Year something special. Do you know what I mean? So we could enjoy it. But don't worry, man. We enjoy some other times. You get me?
Absolutely.
It's all good. All right. Well, today, guys, if you're new to the channel, like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who returnees, you already know what it is. Got the minerals. We're talking to you guys about masculine energy, right? Men having masculine energy. But before we get to that topic, I've got a video that I wanted to discuss with Sean. It's probably going to trigger some of us men in this conversation, or maybe it will trigger some women in this conversation as well. We never know. But I want to let you know here, you could be offended if you watch these videos. So just a pre-warning, you know what I'm saying? Just get your popcorn, get your notepad, and let's enjoy the conversation today. All right, let me get the video up here. Okay. So this is a video I found on TikTok the other day, and I thought, yeah, why not? We should discuss this video. So here we go.
Collective delusion is running rapid. And I got my confirmation yesterday when I saw that femininity coaching April Mason matchmaking self closed her dating academy. I don't know what rock I've been under, but I thought she just opened it. And her reason why is understandable. She said, the majority that come to me have unrealistic expectations, the selfishness, fake everything, think they should be chosen because they have a vagina and good looks, the entitlement, just mean, not knowing the difference between being a woman and a wise woman, and will fight you to be strong, not knowing how to be versus do, thinking being a feminine woman is weak or pick me, whatever it is, placing the blame and not taking responsibility or accountability for the choices they made in men, being disagreeable, defensive, argumentative about everything, always finding something to nitpick about, looking for perfection. If you mention anything about doing something kind for the man they choose, it's what he's going to do for me, and the list goes on. I'm sorry, but I agree. I mean, women are out here, y'all tripping. Y'all are real selfish. Y'all are out here just not even caring about what men want. And I understand that men treated us that way for a long time.
This is for the men who somehow think that they're the prize. Darling, I'm paying my own rent, my own car note, my own car insurance, my telephone bill. Somehow you think you're the prize and I should submit to you?
Is he asking you for peace? What exactly disrupted his peace for him to have to ask you for peace?
But the revengeful behavior, sis, it's all in my comment section. And then when I call women out on it, you're bashing. No, I'm not. But when you see me drag a dusty to filth, you're clapping me on. Come on, y'all. Not all of us are on some goddess queen type of stuff. Some of us are serpents and peasants. I'm just telling you the truth. When someone is telling you the truth, you have to start taking accountability. Let's keep it a buck. Yes, there are different types of femininity, and not every woman is walking around here trying to be Lori Harvey. But I can promise you, manipulating men, not healing from your own shit, being selfish, lying to these men, using them, draining them financially, and whatever else y'all are out here doing to these men, it's not femininity, sis. That is not okay. You do not want that type of energy. The universe will give it right back to you. The Black female collective delusion.
Sean, what's your first thoughts?
Where can I find her? I want to talk to her. She's on it. I love it.
Why do you want to talk to her? What is it that she said that really resonated with you?
Well, I think there's two things. The first one is, and we were talking about this on another topic that's hotly debated recently. A lot of times it's more well received if it comes from the same sex, right? So if we want to communicate a message to men about something that we feel like needs to be improved within the male sector, sometimes it's better and more digestible if it comes from us. And I think hearing it from another woman, it's just great to hear that. One, and I think I would love to just talk to her and hear how she arrived at those points. Like what drove her to do that video? Like what were her experiences, right? And that's why I think about it, and would love to have a conversation with her, because no lies told in anything that she said. I've had those experiences, whether in conversation or even in actual experiences myself. So some of the things she talked about.
Yeah. And you know, and I think, you know, I picked out the video. I came across it on TikTok while I was scrolling, and you know, I thought, yeah, we'll react to this. And my first thought was, you know, I know how this is going to get received. You know, as soon as you do this kind of video, we're going to be called Little Samuels. We are going to be called Little Samuels for discussing this topic and talking about it. And you know, we're gonna address the men obviously a little bit later, but this video was quite eye-opening, because I think and I'll show it on the screen actually, the letter, the post that the woman who was a feminine coach, what she said, there's quite a few things that are eye-opening. We've spoken to some of these things before, right? It's talking about here about placing the blame, not taking responsibility or accountability for the choices they've made in men, being disagreeable, defensive, argumentative, finding something to nitpick about. You know, these kind of things, we've spoken about these kind of things previously before. And you're right, when it comes from a different messenger, it hits different. We experienced this on the live when we were talking about Zach and Michaela.
Yeah.
Right. That sometimes the messenger has to change in order to get the message across. And I think that's what we just saw right there and then, you know, that it hits different when a woman starts to kind of call out other women for some of the behaviors that they're doing. I was like, yeah.
The other thing too was, interestingly enough, and this is the part that I was so glad that because I saw that post, someone else discussed it somewhere else on YouTube, the actual post. I didn't see the young lady who spoke about it on TikTok before, but the actual woman that did that post, I saw that. And the thing that gets me, and this word exists around the YouTube streets and I guess the world now, and it's pick me. So anytime, that's the other part. It's like anytime a woman agrees with a man or stands up to speak for issues that a man is talking about, it's like, oh, now they're a pick me. Okay, so we find a way to diminish anybody who's saying anything that is agreeing with what a man is saying. We find a way to push their opinion down and invalidate it. So now they're pick-me's, just looking to be chosen by men. Anybody that happens to agree with some of the things that men talk about when it comes to their issues with women. So
yeah, you know what? It's so interesting. You know, that because quite quite similarly, the same thing actually happens on the other side. Like if you ever it's toxic basically when we have that kind of energy. It's toxic energy, right? Because you know, it's like I said, no names mentioned. I've seen it on live, right? So some women will agree with us and then they'll get called out by other women because they're agreeing with us, and it's like, why are we calling them out? Because they agree with us. Like, you know what I mean? Like they are seeing our point of view in the way that we're seeing things, so suddenly they become a pick me. And it's like, when did that, you know, when did it start becoming so negative? You know what I mean? Where people are someone's obviously trying so hard to try and get picked. I don't think, and I often oftentimes whenever someone gets labeled a pick me, the person is literally just explaining exactly what we are feeling, thinking, and feeling. And like we just said earlier on, sometimes the messenger has to change. I couldn't get through to you, so she's getting through to you.
Right. And then, you know, to your point, I will definitely say it's not a one-sided thing, because as men, if we say something that is standing up for women, or if we are giving certain women praise and credit, we get called simps.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get thrown into that bucket. So, you know, I don't want to give the impression that it only happens with women. To men, and other women to other women. It does happen in men to men interactions as well. And, you know, we get thrown in that bucket, you know, and called names too, you know, so.
Yeah. Let's look at the post again, and maybe we can break down some of the things that we see in there. If there's anything that sticks out to you specifically, you know, let's jump on that. But I can read it. It says, she said, after 10 years, so we've got a long span of time now. After 10 years of helping women in this area, it's time to move on. I've had dozens of sex stories from women who are now married, engaged, or dating high caliber men. My track record speaks for itself. However, the majority that come to me have unrealistic expectations, the selfishness, fake everything, think they should be chosen because they have a vagina, and good looks, the entitlement, just mean not knowing the difference between a woman and a wise woman, and will fight you to be strong, not knowing how to be versus do, thinking being a feminine woman is a weak or a pick me, whatever that is, placing the blame and not taking responsibility or accountability for the choices they made in men. I can just stop there, and we can kind of just, there's quite a lot that she puts in that paragraph.
Yeah.
I think even the first line, the unrealistic expectations sometimes. What's your thoughts on that? Unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, I think there's a narrative that exists that goes, and when we start talking about to some single women who are looking for relationships, we have this conversation, well, there's someone for everyone, right? Or you just haven't met your match yet. And I want a man who has blah, 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 blah. And this starts to run down a list of all these things of what they want from a man. And again, it's nothing wrong with having a list of criteria before you marry somebody or be in a serious relationship. You should. The other part of it, which never really, in a lot of instances, you don't get to really have the conversation, because it's almost like an insult when you ask that same woman, well, what are you bringing to a man? And they kind of rattle off all these things that are important to them, but find it difficult to hear what we actually want. And in a lot of instances, there's a vast disconnect from the things that women think that they bring to a relationship versus what we want them to bring to the relationship. So I think that in that gap is where that delusion exists, because it's like, oh no, you know, I'm going to have all these things and he should just be glad to be with me because of all these things I've accomplished or all these things that I think are valuable. And that to me is like, no, you need to be keyed into what the man that you want to be with wants, and where do those men exist in that particular category that you're looking for? What do those type of men like, right? And when we start talking about the things that those type of men like, now we want to dismantle it, right? Oh, it's toxic. Oh, you think the average woman is a size 14, and you're looking for someone that's slimmer. So now you're body shaming. It's like, we're telling you what we want.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, bro. And I, you know, again, for anybody listening, this probably will offend some people. It's not one way, but we're discussing it from a male's point of view. So that's why. But, you know, again, I think you're absolutely right, bro. And I think one of those things is, again, I guess also the financial talk as well that gets put into play as well, because, you know, that often becomes one of those expectations that really hits hard, and that's where that word that I don't like on our platform is dusty that comes out, because oftentimes dusty's got, they always, sometimes when women explain it, it's like, I'm talking about his mentality. I'm like, no, you what you really mean is his finances are not in order the way you want it to be. That's what you really mean, right? Most of the time you use the word dusty, it's to do with the man and his money and how much money he's got, right? And so sometimes it's like, sometimes I think the expectations that within our community, within our Black community, sometimes I see can be a little bit far-fetched. And what I hope for oftentimes is that there is a kind of like a self-analysis, reflection, because us men do it all the time. I think us men do it, not every man, but I think most of us men do it all the time, where we reassess our market value, right? What do I bring to the table? Because I have to remember, what I bring to the table is about not just what I necessarily bring, but what actually makes me more attracted to the female. Because that's what we're essentially talking about, right? For instance, when we're talking about what women say they come to the table with, they might say, for instance, highly educated or financial. It's going to sound a little Kevin Samuels, but they might say, okay, I'm highly educated, and that's what makes me so valuable on the table. And I say, I hear that, but do the men want that? So your market value really is about what you bring to the table that the other party wants. So what does the other party want? Well, security, safety, that comes usually in finances. So that oftentimes is what we get laden with and how we often get judged. And that's often where the pressure for us men comes from. But also that then begins to also help you assess where you are in the market, right? Because you know already that your certain amount of financial pool, your degrees, your ability to get certain stuff done, it's going to help you have a certain level in the market. And when you assess yourself, you try not to overshoot yourself. You work within the confinements of what your playground is. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like sometimes when it comes to women, they don't assess the situation appropriately. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that that's where we have those conversations, and sometimes they get heated. And I've seen women, and she talks about the defensiveness, and it takes on a defensive tone because they take pride, obviously, in some of the things that they've attained. So whether, a woman has attained advanced degree beyond college, or she owns her own business, or she has reached a certain level within her career and she's making X amount of money, right? So those are things that are important to her. And in the conversation, when we're talking about what we bring, or what what makes us valuable, those things get talked about. And then it's almost like when we say, well, that's not necessarily what all men may want or appreciate in you. Now you're having this back and forth. Well, why not? Why wouldn't you want a woman who can blah, 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 blah? And it's like, all right, time out. We're talking about what we want. We're talking about what you have that would be something that we would want. I also need to be prepared to talk about what are the things that I have that you would want. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like they're free to talk about all the things that they want from men. And we have to hear it. And as men, I think we accept that reality, right?
Yeah.
We know if we're not 6 feet, listen, I just might not fit I might not be your type.
Yeah.
Right. If I need to make more money to get more access and options to different women, then if I want to be competing and, I'm going to do what I need to do to get to that certain level. Right. So we understand, like, listen, I can control money to a certain extent, right? I can control my career to a certain extent. So let me focus on the things I can control. Listen, if the women that I like really want a man that's more fit, then I know I need to get in the gym, right? You will see men, not every man, but you will see men being like, you know what? I know I need to drop a couple pounds. This is what I need to do. I'm not going to go wild about it, right? You really don't hear a lot of men saying, oh, I feel like I'm being body shamed, right? We just accept it and do. Yeah. And I think that's the difference between like how the male mind works versus a woman's mind works. It's just we don't immediately look to fight the system in that sense. We're going to do what we need to do to be competitive within that system.
And I think that's the key thing here. And I love that you've brought that out, because I think that really is the nuance, not the nuance, it's the extra bit of the conversation that needs to be spoken about, right? What you're talking about is a set of behaviors. So we're not gonna just leave it as men just like this. It's a set of behaviors that you're talking about, which is competition. And I think one thing that as men, one of the privileges of men as a man, which is, from birth, you are going to be competing. All right. And you're not competing because you're good looking. You're not competing because you've been blessed with fine looks. You're competing with other men, which means work hard, achieve and attain, however that looks. Right. And that as you clearly stated as well, that you understand, okay, great. You know what? If I'm going to get a certain type of woman, I'm going to have to bring this to the particular table. I'm going to have to bring this to the particular table. I'm going to have to bring this to the particular table, and to be able to achieve that goal and collect. Now, there are obviously nuances within that. Ladies will say, well, there's dusty men or whatever that collect these women. I'll be like, that's not my problem. That's a you problem. Yeah. If you're getting sucked into the dusty narrative with him, hey, that's his game right there. You fell for the game. I can't talk about that. But for us as men, I think we realize there's a game to be played, and we need to play that game, right? And also what you kind of mentioned, which is really kind of hit me, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that you were saying, and I'm trying to hit me really well. It's gone out of my head, but in a sense, when we're talking about these expectations, it's about the individual being able to reassess where you are. For instance, I'm 30. Sean, you're 30 plus as well. Mm-hmm. We are reassessing our environment. We're not looking at 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because you have to reassess, right? So the same thing with when we're talking about setting your expectations. For instance, when you said about being 6 foot, right? You're right. We realize, okay, I'm not 6 foot. I need to reassess my options. But here's my thing. I wonder if this is someone's gonna get triggered. I wonder if this is maybe why women cannot necessarily assess very well. Women are used to manipulating. I'm saying some mad things now. They're gonna cancel me tonight. Listen,
it's not a lie.
I say that because, for instance, makeup, right? Let's keep it a buck, right? Yeah, you can go from a 5 to an 8. That is a manipulation in that space. Now, someone might say, we just love to do our art. I'm with you. I'm not even saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Listen, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I want you to hear me out, ladies. Listen to what I'm actually saying. Don't get emotional at me. Just listen to what I'm saying. Makeup is a form of manipulation because it changes you to look at a certain way. And for a lot of women, it improves how you look. And you understand that as men, as visual creatures, this is why I get frustrated when they say, why are men visual creatures? But yet you're doing makeup. You know why you're doing makeup, right? You can say it's for your friends and for your girls and everything like that. You can tell that truth to yourself. I'm a keep it a buck. Most of the time, y'all be doing it. It might be for your friends, but you know exactly what it does for us men, right? So you've improved your look from, let's say, a 5. You've gone to an 8 now while you've got makeup on, right? Now, the type of men that are coming to you are different. The men that were approaching you when you weren't having the makeup on are different to the ones that are coming to you when you have the makeup on, because the physical visual representation has changed. And I think because women oftentimes are able to control this aspect when it comes to beauty, I think it makes it very difficult for them to understand where they are in a marketplace. My face is my face. I'm not about to change it. Do you know what I mean? I come with this face today. I'm this face tomorrow, right? And I'm not busting anyone for doing makeup. I'm trying to give an explanation maybe why women can't oftentimes assess very well in this marketplace. It's just a little theory. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would happen to agree. And I think because there's such a premium on women's beauty, there's so many different ways that they can impact that beauty, whether it be in clothes that they wear, right? We have waist trainers and all different types of undergarments that women have worn for centuries that enhance their bodies. That allowed them to pretty much trick the eye. And if we look at them, unknowingly, we're going to see a version of perfection, right? When to a certain extent, how true is it? I don't know if you remember the movie. This is an old movie, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, where there was a scene, and this was a movie from like, I think the late 80s, early 90s. But it just spoke to the times where, this guy saw a beautiful woman out, and then they got back to, the respect of her apartment or whatever, and they're getting into it. And as they're doing it, everything starts coming off, and she's not even the same person, right? Her hair comes off, and, different parts of her, what she's wearing comes off. And then you see the actual woman, which is totally different night and day from who he saw initially when he was out. And I think that's just a visual, and kind of a comedic play on what really happens in the dating scene, where women do have the advantage, where they can do a little bit more to be something that they're really not.
Yeah. And again, I want to just, I want people to understand we're discussing potentially why the behavior is such. So yeah, I'm definitely hearing that, bro. With that as well. And I think, again, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like I said, I take into account the fact that obviously, like you said, we are the ones that are hunting beauty. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you understand the system, which I think us men are understanding the system we're in, it makes it easier just to be able to say, okay, this is a system. Let me logically put into place these things to make sure I get an output. And I wonder sometimes if women are seeing the same thing we're seeing. So seeing it from a logical point of view, put in get an output, right? So for instance, when we talk about, okay, a man wants peace, and then women will be like, we want peace too. And it's like, now you're messing up the algorithm when you do that. That's not, we know you want peace. What we're talking about is the fact that how high is it on our list? Because that won't be the first thing on your list. What, you know what I mean? Like, and how it impacts you is different to how it impacts us as men.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've heard that before. So I wanted to see if you will get jumping on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what we interpret as peace is very different. And this is what kind of does frustrate me when we have these conversations, because we're asked what we want, and then when we say it, it's like, well, I want it too, but what I want doesn't have to be the opposite of what you want. How about ask me, what do I mean by that? Ask me, what's my version of peace? It's not always, well, I want peace too, I want respect too. No, but and then it was so funny. We had this conversation during our afterlive yesterday, and we were talking about our love languages. And of the three of us, myself, you, and Corey, when all asked what our love languages were, either the first or second was words of affirmation. Not the women had that nowhere near their top two, if they mentioned it at all. Yeah, and that's what. And I mentioned that, I was like, so when you ladies hear us say why respect is so important, because it's words for us. For us, the way you speak to us, the way you reverence us, the way you deal with us in conflict, that's the respect that we talk about. And that's what's so important for us over the romantic love. Is romantic love important? Does it feel good? That eros, yes, it is a great feeling. But as a man, my priority is in the way you talk to me, the way you respect me. And I think if women could just hear that from us and just say, okay, I got it. But it always has to be, well, I want you to talk to me with respect too. It's like, oh, how do we ever get anywhere? How do we get anywhere?
No, but bro, you've spoken on something that I remember. This thing came to my mind, I think some years ago, and I did a video this way back, and I said, never as a woman should you allow another woman to celebrate me more than you celebrate. Like, let her celebrate me than you celebrate me. Like, it is the cardinal sin, because the way we interpret respect, and the way we interpret respect, that's love for us,
Yeah.
right? And men as kings want to be adored and they want to be worshipped.
Yeah.
That's why words of affirmation is so important. So those words that you speak onto us can create life and it can create death. And so it's like you can kill a relationship by the simple things you keep saying, right? So this is why man them can handle really crazy women, because they're acting out crazy. They might not necessarily be saying things that are crazy. They might be acting out more crazy. So the man will be like, oh, okay, I can deal with her. Da, da, da. But when she starts saying stuff now to you, that's when it starts really hitting you, because like you were saying, words of affirmation for a lot of us men is a major factor, because we never get that from young. Do you know what I'm saying? You'd never get those words of encouragement oftentimes from young. So when you're looking for a partner, yeah, you're right. But we're looking for peace, but we're looking for respect. And we're looking for a woman that will look to inspire and encourage. You know what I'm saying? Like when you hear, and I'm trying to remember who it was that I saw, but no, it was a church event I was at. And the way there was a pastor and his wife, right? And listen, the wife, yeah, when she spoke, revelation, I'm not gonna lie to you, but she was on fire. Yeah. When he spoke, it was a bit like, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying. He weren't too hot. But when he spoke, the way she looked at him, brother, listen, us man then will turn to each other and say, bro, do you see the way she looked at him? We want that look. We want a wife to look at her. The reverence she gave him. So our respect, what we're talking about, that peace that we're talking about, is the honor that you give to your husband that we're looking for. And I think, you know, for those other men that are not looking for that stuff, that's their business. But I think for majority of men, they're looking for that woman that is going to respect them, give them love, give them appreciation in that form. You buying gifts for me might be great, but I'm looking for respect.
Yeah.
Do you honor me? Do you respect me? You know what I'm saying? That's what we're looking for. What are you saying, Sean?
Absolutely. And I think the next step from that, because you know, we'll then hear, well, men are always getting praised. They're always getting congratulated when they're doing things well and lifted up and encouraged and patted on the back, right? So I think to add to that next step layer, right, it is how you respect us in your actions, right? Yeah. How you respect us with your friends and family members. Do you speak highly of us
of me.
in public spaces? You know, if you even disagree with me, how do you handle that in front of others, right? Do you roll your eyes at me? And, you know, the minute I do something that that you're displeased with, and do you diminish, you know, do you look to just immediately diminish me, right? Or do you just know those moments, you know, the man, and you just say, hey, listen, you know, behind the scenes, hey, what you just said right there, you might have been wrong. I mean, I didn't want to put you out there, you know, but I think you were a little bit off on that, and this is why. Or did you immediately look up? Nope, you said something, I'm checking you. Now, obviously, if I'm saying something completely disrespectful, out of line, blah, 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 everybody's got their own mind and mouth and should speak freely. But most things I find are not that immediate where you have to jump on top of the person and correct them in front of others. And I think that that's the thing that happens, and it eats away at us, because as men, we are prideful. Most of us, again, we have to say this, not every single man. Some men, you know, maybe they don't mind that, you know, correction or any of those other things. That might not be something that's important to them. I'm speaking to those of us that's what we're feeling when we say we want the peace and the respect. You know, it's like, how do you really nurture me? Are you keyed into the type of man that I am? And you'll hear that, just like you saw that an example of that pastor and his wife, and how she talks about him. She's keyed into her man. And so she knows that at the end of the day, this is a hot button. So instead of me pushing the button, I'm going to avoid the button, and I'm going to do things that are going to get the best out of the man that I'm with. And that's not to say we shouldn't do the same thing for our ladies and our women. We should. What we're talking about is now, as a man, what we want and the things that make us satisfied in a relationship. A woman that knows me and gets me and is like, oh, I already know how he's going to react. Let me cater this particular thing that I want to address, because I know Sean, right? Or I know Kojo, and I'm not going to necessarily push this button unnecessarily.
100%. You know, I think something that my dad said to me when I was dating one of my girlfriends at the time, when I brought him when I brought the girl to my dad. He said, "Listen," he said to the girl, "Never put him out in public. You wait till you get home and you can talk to him about how you feel. But you wait till you get home." I just felt when he said it at first, I was like, "Oh, Dad, like, man, you're giving them this archaic things, man. Like, man, nobody want them thing there, fam. You understand?" I didn't understand that at the time till one day it actually happened in public where she did that, and I was like, I looked at her like, but I waited till we got behind the scenes and I said, "Listen, don't do that again. Yeah, I'm not feeling that again. I was about to cuss you in public, but so I don't want to do that because I want the same, I want that same respect." But you're right. I mean, because this is because men are prideful, because men have an ego. Okay, and I know what I'm gonna hear in this part of the chat, in the live chat. You're gonna hear, "Well, if men got egos, they gotta kill off those egos. Why do men get to have an ego?" Listen, we are always going to have an ego and we're always going to have some pride in us. Okay. So having that discussion is a long thing that's not going to change. What's important is being able to manage that. What's important is being able how to utilize that actually for your benefit, because you know that already how I'm going to behave.
Yeah.
Right. Which means you already have the keys to me. You just need to able to just gently move me aside and say, "Babe, listen, let's talk. I'll talk to you a bit later about this." And like, cool, all right. But those, and I think these are little things that we don't in the modern day relationship. I feel like we're kind of missing those little tricks. I feel like we're not getting those little gems in terms of one thing. I have Curtis. I don't know if you guys know, when we do our Wednesday lives, I have a guy, Curtis, and his wife Juanita, and he always says whenever we're interviewing couples, he's like, "Hey, I'm asking you this question, but if it's going to put any of you two out, don't answer the question." It's like, don't ever bring disrepute, by trying to expose the person out in public or answering something that's going to cause that kind of friction in public. It's no need, right?
Yeah.
Especially for us men, because once it goes out there, that respect is hard to get back.
Yeah.
That trust that we now have in you, that you go and support us and back us up all the time, is very hard to get back, bro.
Right. Yeah, that's Marriage UK, right? That's
Marriage UK.
Yeah, he's dope. When I can, because a lot of times you guys are going live while I'm at work, but I'll catch the replay, or if I'm, free, I'll catch it a little bit. But yeah, no, I definitely think that's dope. And another person that started to do that at the tail end of her career, and this is another thing, and I'm going to get off on a slight tangent, but it connects back to what we started talking about. But Ayanla used to do this in the latter part of her, series, where if there was an emotional part with a man and he was crying or breaking down, she would stop the filming or say, "You know what? Let's stop here. I want to give you a moment. I don't want to emasculate you on TV." Or there would be other instances where it was a deep topic with a man. She would bring in a male therapist. And I'm like, this is a woman who, and she didn't always do that, but she evolved to that place. Or she would get to a heated exchange with the man and she would be like, "Hey, I'm not going to do this with you." And she would transition out of the conversation. And I'm like, she gets it. She gets it. And the last thing, and very interesting, similar to this other woman that we were talking about, April, who exited out of the business, Ayanla exited from her show. And one of the reasons that she said she exited is because of a lot of the backlash she was getting from Black females, a lot of the criticism for her looks, her different hairstyles, how she carried herself, the messages that she was saying. And she was like, this is disturbing my peace so much to the point that I have to get off this show, which was at the time on OWN, a woman's network. But she was dealing with female toxicity to the extent that she said, "I don't need to do this I don't need this." So very interesting.
Yeah. And that's what, we like I said, we'll talk about masculinity in a bit, but you're right. This is, I think even like when we were looking at that list again, if I bring it up on the screen again and we can address that, when you look at what she has put down, those are the traits that oftentimes we have the biggest issues on, because you're talking about how situations, for instance, like she's saying here, look, the selfishness, the fake everything, think they should be chosen because of vagina, good looks, entitlement, just mean, not knowing difference between being a woman and being a wise. These are some of the things that we're encountering out there. I would say personally, myself, I haven't encountered it as much. Where I encounter some of these traits are actually in relationships, so I see it rear its head. Do you know what I mean? So it's less for me encountering it with like meeting a woman, but when I'm in a relationship, I see some of these things coming up, and that's when you're like, okay, this is what the person's dealing with. This is what, okay, I can't deal with this, or yes, okay, I can deal with this. I can't deal with that. And I think that one of the things here, which was really important, because we were talking about this originally, was that thinking being a feminine woman is weak or a pick-me, which is what we started the conversation with. That when a woman rests in her femininity, when she can understand the ways of a man and understand our viewpoints, suddenly she's a pick-me, and suddenly she's somebody who just wants to be picked by men. She doesn't hear anything else apart from pick me. And it's like, yo, come on, man. We can't be staying in this place. One thing I wanted to discuss though was in this part here was being disagreeable, defensive, and argumentative. I want to get your thoughts on that. So, sorry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bro. So, listen, I think that this is a touchy subject. But I'll start with relationships. I've had that experience where it's like everything you say or want to do gets challenged. And I think it just kind of can be, I don't know if this is manipulative or duplicitous. I'm not sure what it is, but women will say they want a man that's decisive, right? They'll say right off the bat, I want a man that's decisive. I want a man that knows what he wants. And in instances when you show up as that, it gets challenged. Well, I don't want to do that. And why do we have to do that? And why do we have to go there? You asked for a decisiveness. I gave you a decision. And now we're debating. So I'm like, okay, just tell me which one it is. And I think that's when we get a little frustrated because women want us to show up as masculine. But when we show those masculine traits, and it's not about being toxic, it's not about being misogynistic or misogynoir, which is another new term where we are looking to push down a woman or subjugate her. No, it's just about some of the smaller things that play out in relationships, but then they become things that get debated. So I think that, definitely becomes an issue in relationships that just causes unnecessary strife when we are debating and fighting about things that we really don't need to be fighting about, but it becomes a thing. I remember having an argument about, well, why do we have to go to the supermarket together? Huh? Like, huh? Like, and I wish I was making up this story just to give you an example. I'm dead serious. What? I thought that would be a good thing. Yeah, I just want my independence. We're going to BJ's. We're going to be carrying a lot of heavy items. Would you not prefer that we do that together? Like, I just don't understand. So it's like these little things that just, it's like, are we really going to fight about BJ's? Well, I don't want to go. Well, I only want to go this one place. Okay, so we're going to go shopping. We're going to go out. Like, why are we fighting about the things that we're going to do during the course of, like, what's that to fight about? Like, what? Okay, so what if we stop at one more store? Is that something to be? And it would be like, it would be a moment. And then I found myself like, okay, well, let me just maybe I'll just let her go by herself. Or, maybe, okay, let me just minimize. I don't want to go to one too many stores. I'm going to get her frustrated. But it's like, these are little things. There's so much bigger things in life to be worried about. Why are we fighting about this? But it's an experience that I had, and it's just something that's like, oh man, this is it's wearing me out. And that's what it comes to. I just want my peace. That's that peace part. Because it's like, if I have to think this much about us doing normal household excursions and chores, and then the funny thing is, Coach, in these same settings, I would be out and about and I would see other couples doing their thing. And the husbands and wives are bickering. Oh, God, put that back. Why are you doing that? And I'm like, Jesus, this is just shopping. Why is this such a contentious thing? But this is the reality. And I think you see other couples who are lovingly, the husband and wife, or the couple is somebody's doing one thing, somebody's doing another task, and they've got it figured out. But you see the other couples and they're in strife, and I'm looking at them and I'm looking at the other guy and I'm like, bro, do you see this? He's like, yeah, bro, I see it too. Listen, just happy wife, happy life. Those expressions come out, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, bro, yeah, you're right. Yeah, the defensiveness, argumentativeness, I always talk about, that is a lot of masculine energy when you're facing it, and that's why it's a turnoff. Because, like I said, if you're carrying masculine energy yourself, you're not looking to have a woman that's more masculine. You're looking for a woman that's going to have more femininity. And I think when you're in these situations, no one's saying, and I want to make it very clear, argumentative is not you now being able to stress your thoughts and opinions. That's not what argumentative is. Argumentative is a style where it's combative, right, in the way that you deliver your points, and you know what, Clubhouse is an example of combative people, right? Like, if you're on Clubhouse, both men and women do this, by the way. When you're on Clubhouse, you realize people are argumentative, right? When you hear you're saying your point and all you hear is da, 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 that's when you know you're in an argument. Like, we're not in a place where we're discussing, we're now in an argument, right? When you're getting to a point where you are willing to jump in before I've even finished landing my point, you already know you're getting into a space of argumentative space, right? And I think for us men, what we're looking for, we're not looking for that. And I know some women might be saying, we're not looking for that either. There's a difference. How we actually take it on, again, comes back to that word you said earlier on, peace and respect. Right? Because, like you said, what they're looking for in us is to be decisive, is to lead, is to make decisions, to be executing ideas. And what you want in those moments is not an argument. What you want in those moments is sound feedback. So if you see things differently to how I'm seeing things, you've got to think about the way you're going to deliver this point to me. Right? And I always make this point. I said, it's interesting how when sometimes when we're dealing with ladies, that's not how you talk to your boss, but you want to talk to me like that. So you can do it. You know how to deliver something in a particular way because you do it at work. But when it's me, you're not giving me that same respect. And that's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about as men wanting that respect. It is that the way you deliver something can kill it in that moment or can actually bring it to life. So for instance, when you were saying about going to the store, that moment there, it's like, yo, I just want to help you go to the store. No, I got it. It's like that energy, that tone, we've picked it up and we've gone, what's going on? Like, and that for us makes us draw away. Do you know what I mean? Because we need to be needed. As men, we need to be needed. So when you remove that need, we're talking about masculine energy now. The masculine energy is to provide, protect, serve. And you remove that protection order by saying you can do it all by yourself. Then I can't do that role no more because you said you can do it by yourself. The provision part, and the provision doesn't mean pay for every single bill. Please don't miss what we're saying here. Provision means in the sense of that how we're able to provide for you in moments, especially in the key moments, right? Like I know some people, and it depends how you guys see it. Some might see it as mortgage, whatever you see it as. That's up to you. That's another discussion. But it's been able to make sure that the family's all right. It's providing in those key moments, making sure the ship is tight, making sure that if you're vulnerable in that moment, can I make sure I'm stepping up and making sure that the family's good? And so we can only do that when you allow us to do it, because we can't force it, because then it becomes authoritarian, and that's not what we want in that situation. So yeah, I'm hearing you about the argumentative defensive part. It's a big one there, big one there.
Yeah, I definitely get that, and and I can say that I've seen different sides in different women. So I definitely know there are women that are out there that get it and know how to exhibit it.
Definitely.
I just wish there were more women that could operate in that sense. I think that's the part. It's like if they disagree with you, like we even, have seen it amongst, some of our friends, right? They have the ability to come back to you and say like, oh, I was wrong about that. This was something that we were debating or disagreeing on, but now I hear what you're saying and now I get it. So to me, that moment, like that was so special because it just spoke more about her. Forget about us being right, quote unquote, in the instance. It was more about her and her ability to humble herself and then come to us and say, hey, listen, I know we were debating this and I really didn't want to be wrong about it, but I got to see it more and I took off my blinders or I stopped putting my own thing and I just watched and I couldn't deny it anymore. You get what I mean? Like that to me
Maturity.
is awesome.
Beautiful.
Like and a woman like that is a woman that I can build with because at the end of the day, if you can feel strongly on something and then turn around and say you're wrong, that's where it's at. Because a lot of women will be like, oh, I admit I'm wrong all the time about things that don't mean anything to you. Yeah. About the things that are insignificant. Oh, I picked the wrong color of blue. It wasn't that. Yeah, that's who can't admit that. But what about the thing that you argued to the death and you insisted that you were right about? Are you willing to do that? That to me shows somebody in a marriage because nobody is right all the time. You could have all the facts and evidence that you think you have, but you could be wrong as day. But if you don't have the ability to back down at all, and we've seen that with other folks, like they're not backing down. Doesn't matter how many people, who says it, no one says it. They're not changing their mind. That to me is a very difficult person to be in a relationship with because they're going to see everything through that lens. And it doesn't matter who says it. You know what I mean? Because if 2 or 3 people come to me or you, Kojo, and say, hey, listen, and people that we respect and say, hey, I think you might be off about this particular thing. Not to say 100 times out of 100 we're going to agree, but I'm willing to bet on you and me that we would stop and listen and say, you know what, let me re-examine this. I could be off. A lot of ladies out here, they're not doing that.
I'm with you on that, bro. I'm with you. And it is such a strange phenomena because there is a TikTok that's going around, right, of a guy. The song, it goes, I can't remember the song, it goes, ooh, say ooh, and every time the beat hits, like people's TikTok is that they choose a caption, right? This man put a caption when he was on his phone basically, and he's getting a text from his girl saying, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, and whilst it's a joke, right? This thing blew up. Why did it blow up? Because so many men experience this thing where women cannot say sorry. They can't. And I'm not saying it's every woman, by the way. There are women that we've met, like I said, who do that. But we meet a lot of women who too cannot do that. When they're wrong, they won't admit they're sorry, right? And it's one of the most frustrating things, but it's also one of the least attractive things about a woman if you find that kind of woman who can't admit that she's wrong. Because, like you said, we had that friend that did that, right? The first thing that came to my head was, wow, you can admit that, that's mad. Do you know what? I rate that. I got a whole new level of respect for you because you didn't have to come back and say it. You actually came back and said it. Like it wasn't in the midst of a conversation like we had on a live or something. You came back and then you came and said, guys, yeah, I thought about it. And what you guys are saying, yeah. And it's amazing when you see that, right? Because you know that that's not normal. You don't often see that. Yeah. And I was just thinking about it because I think it's one of the craziest things, especially if you're in a relationship, to kind of see to see that, right? When you're saying about saying sorry, right? I'm not just talking about, oh, sorry. I'm talking about a genuine apology where you actually got it wrong. You were actually wrong. You got it wrong. And you struggling to say an appropriate apology in that moment. We see that quite a bit. And it is the most ugliest trait, bruv. I honestly, I'll be real with it. Like, it's the ugliest trait and the most frustrating trait, and it honestly makes me want to be like, I don't want to get close to that.
Yeah,
because I can't trust you.
yeah.
You know,
And you nailed it, right? Because it's how the apology is executed. Because I don't want to call particular names out, but we've seen 2 women of late that appear on reality shows that we watched, right? And they laid out 2 different apologies. We saw their actions show up on TV, not so good. Some instances very volatile, other instances just disrespectful. Both women issued their own versions of apologies, right? But in both instances, the apologies were layered with an excuse for why their actions were what they were. Whether it was about a narrative about women of color, about the editing that shows up on reality TVs. And that to me is important, because if I'm legitimately sorry for something that I did, no matter what played on in the background, then I'm not going to excuse it away or try to like build in other pieces underneath it to prop my apology up, or to kind of subtly defend my behavior. And that, well, this is kind of the things that you don't know that were happening. No, we know what we saw. We don't know what your full experience was. Just apologize for what we saw and take it for that. For me, like, I look at that, because that tells me your mindset and how your mind works. Because if your defensiveness is built into the apology, that tells me you don't fully get it, right? And just to reflect back on that apology that was given to us, there was no excuse.
Excuses,
It was no excuse. It was, and I think it just disarms you, because
that's the word, bro. Say that again.
It just disarmed us, because it wasn't like we were like, we told you so. Blah, blah, blah. It was like, oh, thank you, Bree. Oh, shoot. Well, she doesn't mind. Love you, Bree. We love you. We love you. This is celebrating you and putting you on a pedestal. So didn't mean to put your name out there.
We've been using it for the last few weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good example.
Because that's how important it was. You know, like, it just was not that. It was just so impactful, you know, and there was nothing else layered in it, but I got it. I'm sorry. And that was it. So I think that, to me, is like, there's nothing else to be said after that. But now here we are, weeks later, still talking about her, still celebrating her, you know, because we just don't see it that much. And that, for the ladies out there, listen, we love you. I love women. I do. I do. I love women. There are plenty of great women out there. What we're talking about, and is an opportunity for any woman that could be thinking like this, how it's received from a man. I'm not telling you how to be a woman. I'm not telling you how to be feminine. I'm not policing women's behavior. I'm talking about my experience as a man with certain women and how that feels, and then giving an example of a woman that did the exact opposite and the positivity that came from that. So that hopefully anyone watching, especially if it's a woman watching, can say, you know what? Let me hear what Kojo and Sean are saying, right? Because they're not out here trying to nitpick and disrespect women, but they're just giving you a couple of key things. So if you're in a relationship, looking to be in a relationship with a man, these are some of the things that are really valuable to us, and this is why. So if you're able to kind of like deep it, as you say, Coach, like deep it, really think about it, then you're going to walk away with like, okay, now I know what they're saying. It's like, don't give me a lifted up apology, you know, propping up the things that you did that were wrong and just kind of excusing it away. No, just say sorry. Say sorry.
Yeah,
you know,
bro, and I love that, and I love the fact that we shared that moment, because it honestly was backbreaking, that moment there. And the key word you used there was, it's disarming. Like, after she said that, there is no "I told you so." You can't say that after the person said it, because the person's been so genuine and has said, "Guys, I got it wrong. I'm sorry." And that's all that needs to be said. She didn't have to go on a long tangent, didn't have to go and give us a flowery. We didn't need all of that. It was a simple, I got this wrong, and I'm sorry, guys, I didn't see it. Boom. It was like, what? Okay, yeah. After that, we don't have to say anything else about the situation, because you have shown us that you've seen it. You've not made any excuses for it, which shows us the accountability perspective. You know, when we're talking about this being accountable, that's precisely it. And I think you made a very good point, which is that when the person makes an excuse, it shows us you don't understand the gravity or the fullness of what you've done. And so when you gave that example of the reality TV ladies that had given their apologies, both apologies were saturated with excuses. This is why I said that both apologies were rubbish, because it's the same thing that Travis Scott did. It's like, it's an apology. The moment you add an excuse into an apology, it's no longer an apology. It's an excuse, right? And I don't need to hear excuses. I need to hear your apology, taking accountability for what you have done. Okay. And so, you know, I always share personal experiences. I had a situation, and the situation was peak. It was peak with a girl, whatever, right? She did me dirty, blood. So now she's coming to apologize. All I was waiting for was that no excuses apology. You know what? I got this wrong and it was stupid of me. No. What I got was, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I hurt you. Yeah, but you know, because like this happened and this happened and this happened. And you know, I was in this space and then my mind was like this and this and that. And I was like, I ain't asked for all of that. You give me all these excuses, lets me know that you don't fully take accountability for what you've done. You're making excuses saying there's things that have made you make this decision. I haven't asked for that. I just wanted a straight apology. And that's what we suffer with. And we talk about men's pride. That in itself is where women's pride is, where also it gets capsulated in that moment, their ego and their pride. Just saying sorry, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Let it go. It will endear us to you.
100%. I think that goes such a long way, and you know, and you know, and it is so well needed, because it gives us hope for the next time we have a disagreement. Because if that takes place and you give an earnest apology, it also motivates me to, you know, to do better. And I think that, like, women want to know how you impact your man's behavior. It's that way.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's how a woman can soften a man. Those are the things that when you operate, and that's the ultimate femininity, because it is submission, because it takes submissiveness to and humility to be able to apologize. It's meekness to be able to do that, and to humble yourself in that way and say, I don't even want to do it. It's everything about me that doesn't want to do it. But that part, and with the right man, obviously not the wrong person, a manipulative person, a narcissist, or whatever. No, you exercise those traits with the right man, right? And doing that will disarm that man, will make that man think twice, and put him in a position to now turn around and apologize to you, right? And you did an example and shared an example of that, right? When we were talking about, you know, one of the people from Married at First Sight, and you did an apology about Gil for some of the things that you were thinking and seeing, and, you know, you kind of put him on a pedestal. I still think let's wait till the verdict is out. But I get why you did what you did, because this was based on the information that you had at that time. Right. So the information you had at that time showed you some qualities and characteristics that you were like, I might have been a little bit off by putting him so high on a pedestal versus what I'm now coming to see play out. Right. And you did that. You apologized. It was earnest. You not just did a video, you did it directly to several of the ladies, whether they were panelists or other people in the audience. You did that. And I would venture to say some of the, like, that apology that you got prior to kind of made it a little bit easier for you to be able to, like, you know what, she did that. I can level up and I could do it in front of my whole entire, you know, audience.
Yes. Right there. And you know what, that leads us to even the next kind of part of our conversation, because that apology was one, yes, I could see that I felt like I was in the wrong, so I just apologized. But also number two as well, it was an aspect I felt of leadership. Like you said, right? I felt the person who apologized to us did it in the background. I was like, well, I'm a public figure. I'm going to put it on the public forum because I speak publicly. So I'm going to put it on the public forum as an aspect of leadership. Because if I can lead in that, then I'm expecting you to follow. Because that's the example I'm setting. If I'm asking you to do that, I'm going to lead with that. because I believe that's part of masculinity too. If I'm asking you to do something, I'm showing you the way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it. So I'm always gonna be the first person to do this or that, so that you know that this is leadership and you follow the lead, right?
Yeah.
So, like you were saying, it's not for every man. We're not talking about every man that out there you go and submit to. It's not every man that you go and, you know, give your life to. Please, there are crappy men out there, and you need to avoid them. Okay, all right. Whatever you will call them, whatever nicknames you have for them, that's them, right? But for those who are decent men, good men out there, right? You know, we talk about masculinity and talk about leading, and that's why I thought that example was good, because it's like, okay, now I've shown you, now I put it in public. From now here on out, guys, this is how we move. So we don't want to be saying like, oh, well, you know, I know you was right last time and did it. No, the same way I came on public, y'all better become, because you would speaking publicly. So now I expect it publicly as well. So it's the same way in relationships. You know, as men, we are to lead in that example, right?
Yeah.
We're to lead in that, showing that we can also surrender and apologize in that moment. If we're wrong, we'll say, hey, I'm sorry, that was my bad. You know, blah blah blah, right? And etc. And again, when do you know what I think the difference with us sometimes with us and women is this? Yeah, like we just said, when the situation happened to us, the person apologized. It was done. We went about our business. Sometimes, and this is not all women, sometimes you give that apology, and it's still gonna be wrath coming up your ass. It's like it wasn't enough. And I think that sometimes is also a frustration for us as men as well. It's like, blood, I've apologized. What more did you want me to do? I actually said sorry, and I didn't give an excuse. I said, listen, that was wrong of me. I apologize. When our situation happened, we said, and we moved on. And I think sometimes it doesn't happen the other way around. That's not every woman again. Sometimes it doesn't happen the way around, man. And it's frustrating.
Well, listen, let's use real life examples that everybody that watches your channel can relate to, right? So that same apology code, right, that you administered, how was that received? And not calling any particular names out, but was there I told you so's? Was there, you know, it's about time you came around to this? Haha, are you willing to admit you're wrong on these other things
Other
too?
things as well. Yeah.
See, and it just got dragged and stretched out, and then it's like, okay, I was waiting for my apology too, and it was like a whole moment, right? Maybe a few in the audience were like, oh, okay, that's so nice, you know, oh, thank you. But there was many of, yeah, I know. And I'm glad you finally see it now. Now I hope you can admit you're wrong on these 5 other things. No. Don't get carried away. Don't get carried away. Don't thinking just because this was right, you were right on this one, that you're right about everything else too. And it's not a blanket statement for every single thing. And just because someone concedes on one area doesn't invalidate their viewpoint on so many other things. So I just think that's an interesting thing. And I think it's sometimes the differences between men and women. And I think as men, the part of us is we are comfortable with the fact of knowing that and accepting that men and women are different, not superior, but different. And acknowledging those differences, and like, let's just move accordingly, right? So let's talk about what our differences are, and let's move accordingly and operate in that space. Every time, like when women say, okay, this is what I want, we don't say, oh yeah, me too. No, you're saying what you want. Oh, I want a 6-pack. Oh yeah, me too. I want a girl with a 6-pack. No, I really don't. Doesn't really matter. 2, it's like that you're just telling me what you want. Have at it.
Yeah.
But back to your leadership part, I think that what you said too is it's leading by example. And you know, I know we're believers, and this is a channel that is focused on believers, and that's what Jesus Christ did, right? He was a leader by example. He was amongst the people. He was meek. He was humble. Many interpreted that as weakness, but that was the ultimate in strength, because he pushed down for the greater good. And I think the ultimate in masculinity is we will push down for the greater good of our family, for the greater good of our woman, to protect her, to provide for her, you know, in that optimal environment, though, because we aren't Jesus Christ. So it takes us to be in a position to know, like, okay, if I put myself in this position, that I'm still going to be respected. I'm still going to be loved. I'm still going to be revered. If I come down to you and say, like, I'm so sorry for what I did, and I'm going to do my level best to not let it happen again, you're not going to turn that back around on me. You're not going to use that vulnerability as a moment to chip away at me. And I think sometimes that does happen in relationships.
Yeah. I'm hearing on that. You know, I think when we talk about this leadership aspect, you know, you mentioned Jesus, which is really good as well, because, you know, maybe we can discuss a little bit, maybe some of the difficulties that we have as men, struggling to be able to be vulnerable in those moments, and maybe surrender and say sorry, because the consequences are different. This is why we say things are different for men and women, right? Because the moment what can happen for us in those scenarios, and again, this is not an excuse. What we're talking about is what can happen. What can happen for us is when we decide to surrender. Remember, we're interpreting love as respect. If then now our leadership is now no longer respected, we've got a problem, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So because we interpret love as respect, when we surrender in that moment, if we're then now looked at as we're no longer respected in that form because, oh, you made a mistake, or you didn't get it right, then it becomes so much more difficult in that relationship, because remember, we interpret love as respect. So there's a different consequence for us when we decide to be vulnerable, that if it doesn't work out, this actually changes the dynamics of the relationship considerably. Right, so that's why it's such a perilous game, they say. But let's discuss maybe some of the because I think, you know, we've spoken about the women and how they don't do. What are some of the things that us men don't do then in those scenarios? Because and why don't we do it? Because we've mentioned one about the fear of losing maybe some respect in terms of leadership. Why do we find it hard to be vulnerable in those moments? As leaders, you know, of our homes and leaders of our families, why do we find it so hard to be able to be vulnerable to the parties involved?
I think we fear the consequence of what that's going to look like long term. So if you know, I admit that I was wrong, now the next time when we are talking about another issue or trying to sort out something, are you going to use that against me and say, you know, well, your judgment was off here, and now here it is again, your judgment is off. So no, I'm not listening to it here, and here. And now there's like a case study of a variety of things where you've pieced together my mistakes and now made a assumption about my character and saying, I got this. Right. And then that's where we somehow, sometimes that independent woman thing kicks in. And, you know, a woman is like, listen, I've been able to take care of this, and I could see your mistake here, there, and there. So now I got it. So I'm just going to make this decision, or I'm going to move in this way, and I don't need you. And that just kicks back into us always wanting to be needed, because that providing piece is like innate in us. Like we get some type of joy out of being needed. But if you don't give us the space to do it, and not be perfect, because no one is, but if you put a magnifying glass to anything, you're going to see a kink. You know, the strongest, you know, magnifying glasses and microscopes can pick up kinks. So if you highlight and focus on any one person, you're going to see those mistakes. And I say that to say, like, if you're focused on something, it's going to be an issue. And that happens in relationships. I've seen it. I've had some of those experiences myself, whereas you just kind of use one thing and it's like, oh, nope, Sean can't do that anymore. I got this. And that's the fear that either I have built up or even other men we build up. So we're like, nope, I'm not even going to admit it because I don't want to hear it. One, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear the I told you so. And two, I don't want you questioning my judgment every step of the way now because you feel like I admitted that I was wrong on this particular piece. Not necessarily the right thing to do, but it's how things play out.
Yeah, and I think just to even go underneath what you're saying to kind of explain maybe the behavior as well, I think this is cultivated. And this is really interesting because I think this goes back to what we said about number one, respect piece, but the peace thing, but also the words of affirmation piece. That, you know, a lot of us are coming from maybe places where we've not been encouraged to continue in the practices that we do, right? And so there's a bit of fragility. Let's keep it real 100. Like we've got a bit of fragility in this area. We've got an ego, we've got pride, and then there's a fragility of the ego and the pride because it doesn't take much to shatter us with a few words, right? And so this space that we're talking about being vulnerable and admitting, or you know, and saying that our leadership failed in a particular area can be very difficult for us in this practice. And I think this is why it's important that we said about, you know, the words of affirmation are so important, because what you're looking for in that moment when you fail, or where you, let me say this, yeah, when you fail, when you take an L, you take a lesson in that moment, is what you're looking for is a word of encouragement, right? And that shows that the person trusts your leadership. If they encourage you in that moment, they trust your leadership. If they begin to dissent and talk against you, it's because they don't trust your leadership, right? And you can sense that as a man when someone trusts your leadership when they don't. I think even my last kind of few relationships, you know, in those scenarios, there's been moments where they've just literally just put it in my hands and said, hey, look, I trust you, do it, right? If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. So, all right, don't worry, man, let's go again, do it again. Like, and you realize just having that safety blanket changes the way that you now even lead, because you're not in fear thinking it has to be perfect. And I think us men do, and this is something we grew up with, I guess, maybe as well. And this is something we have to deal with personally. It's where men, I think, have to do the work in ourselves innately, is that we do grow up with the aspect of having to do some perfectionism. Like, I have to get it perfect in my leadership. I have to be 100% right in everything. If I'm not, then I'm not good. You know what I mean? And then that plays itself in the relationship. And sometimes that can actually be our own insecurity shadowing on the relationship. The woman might not even think that. And now, because we keep thinking that she's thinking that, we're pushing that and projecting that on her and causing our own issues within our own relationships as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Because most of us, we're not necessarily going to, you know, like, I think you and I and others like us have gotten to a point as men, like, that we have to communicate. We've got to flesh things out. There is power in that communication and some vulnerability about admitting some you know, some of the things that burden us. But a lot of guys just struggle with how to navigate that conversation. So they keep it bottled in, and then they don't say it. And then it's just kind of like you see the divide build in between the, you know, relationship, because women by nature are very communicative, right? They will talk sometimes more than we would like, but they're going to tell you, you're going to hear how they feel. Most women, not every woman, but most women are going to, you'll know. To a capacity, even in their body language, like you're going to know. Even like men, like if we're upset, sometimes it's just going to hide itself in stoicism. If that's the kind of man that we are, we'll just be like very staid. And then that could be how that guy is all the time, but you don't know what he's struggling with on the inside. And that is also an issue. And that's why, you know, we talk about this, but the suicide rate in men is so much more higher than it is in women, because we bottle things up, and it's taught to us to really be great, be perfect, have everything aligned, have this by this age, have all of these things in place, be the provider, have this much money, you know, take care of this. And we don't always express it the right way, so it gets internalized, and then you know, it's not productive and healthy in our relationships. So I think we've got to use, that's when we've got to turn our feminine side on, because we all got it, right? And now delve into that part a little bit more and kind of get our feelings out and talk about the things that are bothering us. And I think that's why spaces like this are so important, because it lets us kind of like, okay, this is what I feel like as a man. And this is some of the issues that have plagued me in relationships with women. And this is why.
Yeah, bro, that's powerful, man. Very much powerful. And, you know, you touched on something really important there about how women are communicative compared to us. And it's something that we need to learn how to do. I think for us as males to do better, because there's something I remember saying to my brother the other day. I was like, whenever you put somebody in a space where they can't explain how they feel, they'll act it out. The problem with acting it out is it's often really bad charades. It comes out really, really bad, right? They act it out really, really poorly, you know, rather than actually expressing how they actually feel. For instance, you see some men will naturally go to the emotion of anger and frustration, and it comes out as a rage, right? But really, that's not what they're feeling. They're embarrassed, they're shamed, they're feeling guilt, they're feeling a whole host of things underneath that. But because they don't communicate now, all right, it comes out in a frenzy, and that in itself can be scary for the other party. It can be disheartening. It can be, you know, it could break your relationship. Like I think we have to be very serious about this as men. Like, you're acting out because you couldn't explain yourself could actually destroy your marriage. It can destroy your relationship you're in right now. And if you don't learn how to put words to how you're feeling, you are going to cause a huge ruckus and a muck in your relationship. Now, that's not to do with the woman. That's to do with you. You know, you've got to get a hold of yourself and actually start to learn how to express how you truly are feeling. If you don't know how to do that, you might need to see a therapist. You might need to see a counselor. You need to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? There's no excuse now. We're grown men. We're not 14, 15, 18 young men where we were running ragged and doing madness. We're grown men now who are looking to make sure our family, especially now we're looking to go into having families as well. I literally just listened to 2 chapters of Will Smith's book. The first 2 chapters, I'm telling you, are killer. Got nothing to do with Jada or to his parents. Bruh, when you hear it, yo, it brought tears to my eyes, bro. I was walking and I was tearing up. I was tearing up because I was like, yo, I feel what he's saying in this moment, bruv. And what he was expressing was about how his father was. And he explained something that his dad was a bit of a rebel and everything like that. But, you know, his dad was DV and his mom was domestic violence, right? And he explained how his mom was an intelligent woman and he wasn't as academically intelligent. He was more business savvy. And I said, do you know what happens when you start feeling inferior and you can't express yourself as to what you're actually feeling? It comes out as rage.
Yeah.
Because that's the intelligible language you understand. And that's why we're saying how important it is for us as men when we're talking about leadership. Good leadership, you know, good masculine leadership requires you to do the work where you build your feminine energy up, where you actually learn how to express your emotions and what you're feeling in the correct manner. And we've been talking about this for the last few seasons. We talked about this on Married at First Sight with Zach. We said all this crying is too much, okay? And we're not saying it in the sense of men can't cry. We're saying in the sense of you've got to communicate, not be crying all the time. If you're feeling it, talk.
Yes.
Flow, bro.
100%. And it's just what you spoke on, like learning to be emotionally intelligent and also learning to put words to your feelings when you're upset is something that I had to learn in my marriage and in relationships, because it can be very toxic, right? And normally, you know, I am a relatively calm person, but obviously in a marriage, your buttons get pressed. Things are going to be said. And I think the times when I didn't hold my tongue, I didn't express myself in the right way, were times when arguments and things got heated, and it was totally my fault. It was totally my fault. No matter what she said, no matter what happened, it was my fault, and it was my lesson to learn, in that you are in full control of what you say. You are in full control of what you do, and no one, no matter what they say or do, especially in a relationship. Obviously, I'm not saying like if somebody's attacking you or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you got to defend yourself. But in a relationship, it's not, we're on the same team. We shouldn't be at points where we're feeling defensive and we have to like strategically battle each other with our words, right? And I think that was a lesson that I had to learn. Like in relationships, I don't need to be the master debater.
Come on.
There is no benefit in me winning the debate.
Come on.
And proving myself right. Or if there was a point that I felt was wrong, me not taking the time also to step back and say, you know what, and I learned it too little too late. It's like, you know what, we're not going to fight this fight right now. Let's come back to this at another time. Let's just refresh. Let's revisit it. We both are too invested in the argument.
Come on.
I wasn't doing it, right? And I'm a strong advocate of therapy, and we had gone to a marriage counselor, and he told me some words that I always kept in mind. There were two things that he said to me that I'll never forget. He said, one, watch your words, watch what you say. And I probably said this before on your platform, but he's like, when you start to argue and you start using certain words and you chip away at a person, it's like ripping up sheets of paper. And although you can tape and glue those pieces of paper back together, it's still never going to be that same piece of paper. And then the other thing he said was, are you willing to go to war for this? He was like, because you can't go to war for everything, you know? And when a country goes to war with another country, they can't go to war for every little infraction.
Yep.
It has to be
major,
a solidified thing that you're going to put your stake in the ground and say that. And that's something that I walk away with now. And I'm like, am I willing to go to war for this? Right. And that's a lesson that I learned for myself and something that I want to take away. And then the way you talk to somebody is so important. Having control over yourself, your emotions, your feelings, your anger, your frustration. Because when you communicate with those things, nothing ever comes out good when you communicate in anger and frustration. It just doesn't.
Yeah, bro. I mean, thank you for sharing that, bro. That's a deep thing there as well, bro. And sharing your piece of your life as well with that. Because I think that's such an important piece, as you just said there. You know, they're important things. We spoke about the women, you know, being argumentative and defensive, but you've brought up some really good points, which is, am I willing to die on this hill? Is it worth me going to bat to argue in this moment about this thing, which maybe not the majorest thing I'm going to be arguing about? Do I need to die on this hill? You know, and I think that's part of leadership. You know, that, you know, we don't want to be fighting every fire, because then you'll never be able to tackle the major issues, because you're always consistently fighting these little fires. You'll always be busy. And you know, you know, even like you mentioned, I mean, I think about past experiences with women, and I think at some of the arguments we've had, and I think to myself, oh, that argument really wasn't worth it, to be honest. And honestly, like, if I just explained myself properly, if I actually explained what I was feeling rather than acting out, this probably wouldn't have been an argument. It would have been a conversation. But because I was so wrapped up in the emotion and I wasn't able to express what I truly was feeling, and rather I was acting it out, this became an argument, because what you see from my actions and my body language and then what I say in that moment, which is not how I truly feel. It's the top part, but not the underneath root surface of what I'm actually feeling. Now you're frustrated and now you're hurt because I said something sharp, right? And I've pointed some arrows in your direction and I've started firing, right? And like you just mentioned there, it is one of the most important things in a relationship, because once you tear that piece of paper up, like you said, you cannot, it's a powerful statement. You cannot, you put it back, but it's never going to be the same, you know? So it's important it's important to minimize the amount of detrimental infractions that you incur in your relationship, almost like a driving test. You know, you want to, the minors and the majors, you want to keep them low as possible so that you don't fail, because there's only so much other person can take. And so, you know, those are the things as leaders we are having to learn how to do, because we're asking the person who is following us to do the exact same thing. If we're doing that, we need to be also leading in that area where we're saying, let me be emotionally intelligent. Let me consider my words. Let me measure what I say. And let me be very careful about what I am going to release in this moment. Because like you were saying earlier on, it's not just about the battle. It's about the war. I want to win the war. I want to make sure our marriage reaches the end.
Yeah.
So there's something I have to just, keep quiet for now.
Agreed. And I think that whether it's men or women that are hearing this too, we're not saying ignore everything. We're not saying press down every emotion and feeling and ignore certain things that are red flags or very big issues. I think what we are saying is that living with someone, especially in a marriage, is 24/7. It's 365 days of the year. We as humans are going to do things that aggravate, annoy, get on each other's nerves. You're just you can't make the sock on the floor a big thing, is what I'm saying. You can't make, okay, you didn't do this tonight, honey, a thing, and whatever that could be from the man to the woman, and vice versa. Sometimes some things you got to give people grace. Yeah. And I just think in relationships today, we don't give each other enough grace. And what ultimately winds up happening is, and that's where the delusion that I see on some women's point comes into view, because you have this litany of things that go forward before you are even in a relationship. You have a master list of things that need to happen before you're in relationship with somebody. And that is a blockage to you actually having a healthy relationship with that particular man. And this happens because, again, generalizing, but most men, we don't walk around with a list of 10 to 20 things that we're looking for from a woman. There's probably a handful of things that we run through with our minds, that these are priorities or important, or things that, and some of them we could be like, oh, if I don't get that, I'm fine. But if I get this 1 and 2, I'm good. Right. And some of these other things are loose, could be loosely negotiated. Women, they get fixed in these very particular positions. And then the only way you see them negotiate is time. So, and I don't want to trigger any ladies, but, once they start getting a little further in age, whether it's later in their 30s, into their 40s, then we start, maybe I'm looking at things a little bit different, or maybe that guy that I dated in my 20s that really seemed like he was a good guy and invested in me might be the person that I want to look back at now and reconsider. That's where you kind of get this refresh of maybe the things that I were prioritizing back then aren't the things that I should be prioritizing now. So that's a little sidebar.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I'm with you. It's prioritizing the most important things. Talking about obviously our leadership and talking about masculinity in that sense. Then, but what for you then would be masculinity? What for you would be masculinity?
So I think it's that the strength in character. Right. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and the ability to lead by example. And that's where you show character, right? Where you show up, where you're not just going to say, do something, or this is what I want done in my household, but you are willing to do those things in terms of what you expect. Right. So if respect is important for you, if words and the way you are spoken to is important to you, then you now are turning around and doing that same thing for your wife and your family, right? So your kids will see the way you talk to their mother and how you respect her, so that they in turn respect her as well, because you as the father, the head of the household, are leading by example in that capacity. You set the tone, right? You give that grace and space for people to show up in your house the way that they are, right? You're not around here criticizing your son if he happens to cry because he fell and bumped his knee and telling him to man up. You are talking him through the emotion. You are checking in. You are, the strength and character is the way you show love to your family, affection. I think it's so important for men. And I think it's masculine. And I love that there's a lot of forums out there now that you see men doing this. There's an Instagram page called the Dad Gang that I follow. I love it. Yeah. I love it. and and you'll see a lot of different men that are like social media personalities, that they make sure they kiss their sons.
Yeah.
And that for me, like my dad, I grew up with my dad kissing me, not on the mouth, but on the cheek. Always. He would hug, kiss me, tell me he loved me. I talked about this a little bit, but losing my dad at 16, those moments are so impactful because I only had him for a short span in my life. But there was never a question that I could think about if my dad loved me. It was the last word he said to me. So for me, I think that is such strength and masculinity when you are comfortable in expressing and showing your love for your family.
Man, I love that last point that you really touched on there, bro, about being able to express emotion, being able to express affection for your children, and lead them by example in that. I see that. We mentioned Jesus earlier on, and that is what God does for us. That is what the Father does for us. He models how he wants us to also behave. I was just thinking about the other day, I was like, the amount of things that I do wrong, this guy does not slap me on the back of the neck. I don't get a cane to my ass. And listen, my dad used to beat me. I'm not beefing that. I'm saying? I did some mad things when I was young. But I'm just saying, in the way that he governs us in our relationship with him, the way that he shows that affection and love for us, is a prime example of what we're talking about in leadership and masculinity. How when you are a leader, you are to set the example that you want the rest of the household to follow. You want the household to be respectful, show respect. Like we've spoken about the women quite a bit. The men, I want to get at you. If you out here, say you want respect, but you never show it, or you want to strong arm it, and then don't expect the same thing to happen to you when you strong arm it. Someone's going to strong arm it from you too. What were you hoping for? What you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yeah.
You want a loving family. You want a family that gonna appreciate you as well. Are you appreciating them? Are you showing that you care? Are you turning up? You know what I'm saying? Like, those are all also our inputs that are also going to contribute towards setting up a healthy environment so that your family can thrive. Whether that's your children, whether that's your wife, you want to make sure you're providing that environment that's safe, and making sure that environment is a place where you are showing that, hey, I can lead in this area. Like we were saying and run about the apology. If I'm expecting people to apologize, I have to lead in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let me not just say it and never do it. Let me show you, so that now you know how to do it. In business, in banking, I worked in a bank, and one of our mottos was, don't just tell the customer, show them. Telling them is good, but showing them does a one step better, because now they know how to do it. So you now know, by teaching them, they now have that skill to do it. And it's the same thing as leaders, as men, and that's why we're talking about and run about having that emotional intelligence and developing it, because now when you lead in that area, your whole family benefits. If you can express yourself, your kids are going to express themselves, right? So many of us as kids know exactly how it feels when you can't express yourself. When you get to that stage where your parent has really pissed you off and you can't say nothing, so you're in your bedroom going, "Ooh, if I," we've all been there. You know what I mean? But it's leading by example, by showing the family that, hey, it is okay to do this. This is how I expect a household to be. I want it to lead this way, but I'm going to show you by going first. So yeah, I definitely hear you on that points there as well.
Yeah, and I think that just makes me think about the other side of it, right? Because often we talk about men providing, and that means financial to most of us, right? We equate, or pretty much all of us, the general sentiment is provision means providing financially, taking care of the household, right?
Yeah.
I think what a lot of men miss, and this causes strife in relationships, it might not be right up front, but it's down the line, is the other part of it, where just like we're saying from the women, like, hear us what we want, and this is what we want and why, us checking in with our women, because there's many of us that do provide and take care of our households, and we think it stops there.
Oh, come on.
But it doesn't stop there. And I think that's where we leave women out where we're not doing that part to say, hey, listen, I know I got this covered, but what do you need? Like, you know, for women that may be stay-at-home mothers and now kids are teenagers, what do you need? Like, what's important to you? What's next? What how do we take this relationship to the next level? And I hear this from women, and I can understand that. It's like, you know, do we only view you as a birth giver to our kids and a take care of the house, right? Or is there something more you can give? And I think sometimes certain people in the manosphere, they leave that out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just fit, feminine, and friendly, make me a sandwich and sit in silence and shut up. Well, there's more to a woman than that. And if you want to keep her in that relationship and checked into you and in tuned, you also need to flip back and say, what do you need from me? If you're making sacrifices on this end, what's a plan? What are some things you would see and like to get accomplished? And I think as men, especially from a leadership perspective, that's the work we've got to do. Because sometimes that gets left out and we think, listen, I'm paying all your bills. I'm taking care of everything. You don't have a worry in the world. Yeah, financially she might not, but that's not everything. So we've got to make sure we're having the other part of the conversation with our women. I think that's so important that we do that.
Bro, I love that point, bro. I love that point, you know, because you touched on how, you know, we have to be communicative in that with our women, because like you said, we are not the same way we hate being seen as just a bank. You know, the women are also hating the fact we're just looking at them as a baby factory machine and a nursery worker, you know, because that's what sometimes, like you said, that's where sometimes the conversation can get reduced to, you know, like you said, fit, feminine and friendly. Like it can get reduced to that level. And what that does is it strips both of us now of the opportunity to really bless one another, because what we've done is we've made you rigid lines and said, you're just a mother and you're a mother to my kids. And, you know, I have sex with you, whatever. And after that, that's what it is. Yeah. And I pay the bills. So don't expect me to do anything else. You know, and relationships, life, generations that are coming after you, going to require more than that. They're going to require more than just your coins. All right. This is why we were talking about the Nick Cannon thing the other day, about the fact that in the Nick Cannon situation, it don't matter if he can pay for all these kids. Is he going to be emotionally available for all those kids? Is he going to have time to spend with them? And as men, we have to show leadership in this aspect where, like I said, being able, like you said, is there anything I can, aside obviously the provision financially, how can I pour into you? What do I need to, you know, help you with, et cetera, right? And this is a funny thing as well. When people talk about, especially I'm talking about a Christian perspective, talking about the man is the head. What they don't realize is the word that's used, I think when it's translated into Greek, means source. So what it means is that the head feeds the body, which is what Jesus does for us. He feeds us. He nourishes the body, right? With the word. So you as a husband are to nourish your wife. You're supposed to feed her. So the question that you have to be asking yourself as a leader, as a masculine male that you're talking about, I'm the head of my home, is how am I feeding my family? I'm not talking about your finances, not talking about your bills, not talking about food on the table, but how are you feeding into your family? This is why it's reciprocal between ourselves and the wives, right? Where we did a whole hour talking about how we want the woman to be this, and rightly so. But as men also too, if we're asking for that, what is our role in helping to nurture that and fester that in our environments that we're having? Because you're part of the problem if you don't realize, because you're the one that's feeding this body. So what are you feeding the body? Are you feeding it healthy food, or are you feeding it junk? Because whatever you're feeding it, the body's going to respond to it. You know, we know what happens to us when we eat junk all the time, and we know what happens to us when we eat healthily a lot of the time. So so for us as men, when we're in that leadership space, that's why I said I love the point that you made. It is about what, you know, how we pouring into that woman, how we pouring into our woman, how we helping, supporting, giving a listening ear. You know, and again, you know, we're talking about us men. You know, I said this on the live about women they are birthers of ideas, and men are meant to execute. Oftentimes, that's a masculine and feminine energy. You know, you got a woman beside you. This is the helpmeet. This is supposed to take you to the next level. You know what I'm saying? So if you've got a woman that is there, dedicated, respectful, loving you, caring for you, what are you doing abusing that my brother, you need to be loving on this woman. And when I say loving, it doesn't necessarily mean just buying her flowers. I'm talking about feeding her so that she can act, because what she's going to do is give it back to you so that you can go even to the next level. So you can be even greater. You know what I mean? So it's so important being able to feed, into your family, into your wife, and looking at her not as just a baby factory machine, and seeing her as somebody who can elevate you and take it to that next level because she can see things you just can't see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And again, it obviously comes with choosing that right woman, right?
That's it.
And just like as earlier we talked about for, some of the things we as men want, and when women do those things, it should be with the right man. The same for us, right? It comes to choosing that right woman, and I think it just kind of challenges what are the things that are important to us. What are the qualities? Obviously, men were visual. I think that's a hard. I'm not saying I want to turn that aspect off, but we kind of like what we like.
Yeah.
I think if I look at myself, because I even had a close female friend tell me recently, like, I think you're too rigid on like your perspective on this particular thing. And I'm like, okay, let me just think about what you're saying, right? Let me just hear what you're saying. You're somebody that I think, I respect. Let me hear where you're going with this. And I think, she brought up a good point. Like, sometimes you just like what you like, but is that what's got you the best results? So I think like that's where I'm sitting in that space now, and I'm just like, okay, perhaps I don't have to be so hard and fast fixed on a woman looking like XYZ. Now, does that mean, I'm going to go all the way to the extreme? No, it does not. Don't want to get the wrong impression. I don't want to get the wrong impression. No, it does not. But I think like what is going to have me in a lasting relationship, marriage, and going to get me the results that I desire, and somebody that I can be my full self and build a life and a legacy with, those are the things that I think should be the priority, and let everything else take itself from there. So,
yeah, but I'm with you on that. And I think, just shortly just saying that, I think as you mentioned, for us as men, the choosing, and this is where where your leadership is going to start from. Or who are you choosing? And that's why it's important that we're trying to grow as men. Every day we're trying to grow. We're trying to improve ourselves so that we can also make educated choices that we are choosing, the type of woman you're going for. And I think you said it earlier on as well. What kind of woman do you want? You need to ask yourself what kind of woman is going to resonate with you. What are the qualities you're actually looking for? And it's important not to get carried away with just how beautiful she is. But that doesn't mean that we're going to ignore the beauty. It means that I'm going to see the beauty, of course. But I'm now going to look beyond that and ask myself the key question. Okay, what qualities do you have? Because you may be great, but you might not be great for me. You know what I'm saying? So like we did the personality test, and now we're talking about the other day. It was like, we know who we need to be going for. We know what personalities we're going for, because that awareness has kicked in, So
yeah.
And the same thing for us men, we need to be more conscious and aware, and because otherwise the same way we're cussing women for choosing these guys that they sleep with and have baby mothers with, I'm looking at us as guys and going, brother, so when you're in your fourth, fifth, sixth woman and you're still not working, bro, are we not going to be questioning what kind of woman you're choosing? So that's the accountability on our part, who we going to choose.
Yes, and I think that's when we really are holding ourselves accountable, right? Because we're taking a look back into our past, we're seeing what opportunities we have to do different, and then executing forward with a different stance on those things that need to be changed, right? Because everything that we've done doesn't need to be changed, but there's obviously some opportunities for all of us who haven't found success in some areas. So it's like, okay, now as a man, if I want to be a leader, if I'm really smart and I'm really being objective, I'm going to say, Sean, you might have been off about that, and you might have pushed too hard for this. This is an opportunity for you to kind of recoil, readjust, recalibrate, whatever words you want to use, and then move with a different plan going forward.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we've reached the end of the conversation. I always let you benedict, so let me let you conclude in this conversation as well. Let you do what you do best, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate you, Coach. Respect. So
Respect,
listen, for all the ladies out there, I hope you heard everything that we had to say, because it was all in love. And this is what our heartfelt sentiments were. Some of the frustrations, some of the joys. We love women. We love you. We definitely do. And we just love you so much that we want our relationships to work with you. So this is your opportunity to hear from two brothers that are talking from our hearts. Also, we gave you the other side of things that we as men need to work on, things that we are actively working on, right? So it's a balanced conversation. We definitely can see both sides. So at the end of the day, hopefully we do more things like this. These are things that are bringing us together. We got enough things out there that are pushing us apart. Let's do more things that are going to bring us together. So thank you, Coach, and I'll turn it back to you.
Appreciate you, Sean. As always, the benediction is sweet with Sean Unfiltered. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been on Men's Unfiltered Chat again. Listen, by the time this gets to you, it's probably Christmas time. So listen, have a happy Christmas and a Merry New Year as well. We appreciate you. Stay locked and stay loaded. And we will see you in the new year, in the 2022s. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, baby. Live life.